The grand chamber of Unity Station floated in the darkness of space. Inside, representatives from dozens of alien species gathered in a circle. Their voices echoed through the massive room as they discussed matters of galactic importance. This was the Galactic Council, the oldest governing body in known space. Ambassador Elena Vasquez sat in the human section. She wore a simple dark suit and kept her expression calm. Around her, alien beings of all shapes and sizes filled their seats. The Cravathi looked like giant insects with shining black shells. The Thalen resembled large birds with sharp beaks and fierce eyes. The Selenar were creatures made of pure energy, glowing softly in their containment fields. Humanity had joined the Council only 50 cycles ago. In galactic terms, this made them newcomers. Most species measured their history in thousands of cycles. Humans were still on probation, still being watched and judged by older civilizations. The current discussion was about military matters. The Thalen representative stood tall, his feathers ruffling with pride. His name was War Leader Chakras, and he loved to boast about his people's strength. Our fleet numbers 10,000 warships, Chakras announced, each one equipped with plasma cannons and energy shields. We have defended this sector for 3,000 cycles. Other representatives nodded in respect. The Thalen were known as fierce warriors. Their military power was undisputed. Chakras turned his sharp gaze toward Elena. Tell us, human, how many ships does Earth possess? The chamber grew quiet. All eyes turned to the human ambassador. Elena looked up calmly from her data pad. We maintain several patrol groups, she said simply. Research vessels, cargo transports, and some defensive platforms. Chakras made a sound that might have been laughter. Defensive platforms? And what weapons do you use? Surely not those primitive kinetic weapons we saw in your admission files. Several council members clicked or hummed in what sounded like amusement. Kinetic weapons were ancient technology. Most advanced species used energy weapons, plasma beams, or electromagnetic pulses. We still use kinetic weapons, yes, Elena confirmed. Her voice remained steady and professional. The Cravathi representative spoke next, his voice clicking through his translator. Humans throw metal at their enemies. How basic, Elena smiled slightly. We use what works for us. Chakras spread his wings in a dismissive gesture. Your military presence is insignificant. A few patrol ships cannot protect anyone. Why did the Council even accept such a weak species? Elena did not rise to the bait. We keep our distance until we are needed, she said quietly. The statement hung in the air. Several representatives looked puzzled by her words. What did that mean? Needed for what? The Council chairman, a wise Selenar named Luminos, shifted the conversation. His glowing form pulsed gently as he spoke. Let us discuss more pressing matters, Luminos said. The outer sectors grow more dangerous. The Corvin swarm has been spotted near the neutral zones. A wave of nervous energy passed through the chamber. The Corvin swarm was feared throughout the galaxy. They were a hive mind species, brutal and merciless. They took no prisoners and showed no mercy. Entire colonies had been wiped out by swarm attacks. A small voice spoke up from the lower seats. It belonged to Representative Pila, a member of the Mirashi species. The Mirashi looked like small rodents barely 3 feet tall. They were a peaceful trading people known for their gentle nature and artistic culture. Chairman, Pila said nervously, my people recently established a colony in Sector 7. We have 3,000 civilians there. Is it safe? Chakras waved a wing dismissively. Sector 7 is contested space. Your people should not have settled there. But the Council approved the settlement, Pila protested weakly. Approved, yes. Protected, no. A Cravathi representative clicked. Protection in contested zones comes at a price your species cannot afford. Pila's whiskers drooped. She looked down at her small hands, clearly worried but unable to argue with the larger, more powerful species. Elena watched this exchange carefully. She made a note on her data pad but said nothing. Her dark eyes missed nothing, taking in every gesture and word. Luminos spoke again. The Council will monitor the situation. If the swarm approaches Mirashi territory, we will convene an emergency session. Pila nodded, but she did not look reassured. Thank you, Chairman, she whispered. The meeting continued with discussions of trade routes, territorial disputes, and diplomatic missions. Elena participated when necessary, always polite, always professional. But several representatives noticed she kept checking something on her data pad. Whatever data she was reviewing, it seemed to require her constant attention. As the session ended and representatives began filing out, Shekris approached Elena. He towered over her, his sharp talons clicking on the floor. "A word of advice, human," he said, his voice low. "This galaxy is dangerous. Species with small militaries do not survive long. Perhaps your people should focus on building real weapons. Energy shields, plasma cannons, modern technology." Elena looked up at him calmly. "Thank you for your concern, war leader. But humans have survived far more dangerous situations than you might imagine." "Have you?" Shekris tilted his head, eyes narrowing. "Your species has only been in space for a few hundred cycles. What could you possibly have faced?" Elena's expression remained neutral. "We faced ourselves," she said simply. "And we're still here." She walked away, leaving the Thalen war leader standing alone. He watched her go, uncertain what to make of the strange human and her cryptic words. In her private quarters later that night, Elena sat in front of a secure communication terminal. She typed a brief message and sent it through encrypted channels. The message traveled faster than light, reaching Earth's defense network in moments. On Earth, in a facility hidden deep beneath the ocean, an admiral read the message. He nodded slowly and began issuing orders. Throughout the solar system, in shipyards hidden in the Oort cloud and on the dark side of distant moons, lights began to glow. Ancient engines, dormant but always maintained, started their wake-up sequences. The galaxy thought it knew humanity. It thought humans were weak, young, and naive. The Council saw only patrol ships and research vessels. They had no idea what waited in the darkness between the stars. They had no idea what humanity had been building while the galaxy looked away. Soon they would learn, but by then it would be too late for assumptions and mockery. By then, the galaxy would understand what those cryptic words really meant. Humans kept their distance until they were needed, and when they were needed, nothing in the galaxy could stop them from answering the call. 3 weeks passed quietly. The Galactic Council continued its normal operations, debating trade agreements and settling minor disputes between member species. Elena Vasquez attended each session, her presence steady and unremarkable. The other representatives had grown used to the quiet human who rarely spoke unless directly addressed. Then, on a normal morning cycle, everything changed. The Council was in the middle of a discussion about mining rights when every communication system in the chamber suddenly screamed to life. Emergency frequencies overrode all other signals. Alarms blared throughout Unity Station. Representatives jumped from their seats in shock. A desperate voice filled the chamber. It spoke in Mirashi, the words tumbling over each other in panic and fear. "Help us. Please, anyone who can hear this. The swarm is here. They are attacking our colony. Thousands of civilians are trapped. We need immediate evacuation. Please, please help us." The voice broke into sobs. In the background, terrible sounds could be heard. Explosions, screaming, the horrible screeching of Corvin warriors. Representative Pila collapsed in her seat, her small body shaking. Other Mirashi representatives rushed to her side, their faces showing absolute terror. On the main view screen, live footage began streaming from the colony world. The images were horrific. Corvin swarm ships darkened the sky, thousands of them like a cloud of death descending on the planet. Their ships were organic and twisted, grown rather than built. On the ground, swarm warriors poured through broken defenses. The Corvin looked like nightmares, each one 8 feet tall with 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws. They moved as one, coordinated by their hive mind, killing everything in their path. Mirashi civilians ran through the streets trying to reach shelters. Many did not make it. The swarm showed no mercy, no hesitation. They were perfect predators, evolved only to consume and destroy. Chairman Luminos glowed bright with urgency. "How long until the planetary shields fail?" A technical officer checked his systems. 48 hours, Chairman. After that, the swarm will reach the main population centers. 3,000 civilians, Pila whispered, tears streaming down her furry face. 3,000 souls, children, families, artists and teachers and farmers, all of them going to die. The council erupted into chaos. Everyone spoke at once, voices overlapping in dozens of languages. The translator system struggled to keep up. "We must send military forces immediately," one representative demanded. "The nearest fleet is 6 days away," another replied. "They will arrive too late." Chakras stood, his wings spread wide. "My Thalen war fleets could reach the colony in 5 days, but they are currently engaged in defending our border territories." I cannot withdraw them without leaving my own people unprotected. A Cravathi representative clicked thoughtfully. Perhaps we could negotiate with the swarm. Offer them resources in exchange for the colonists. The swarm does not negotiate, Luminos said sadly. They have never responded to diplomatic contact. They exist only to consume. Then perhaps we can purchase the survivors, the Cravathi continued. If any species can mount a rescue, we will pay handsomely for Mirashi refugees. They make excellent workers. Pila made a choking sound. The Cravathi was already talking about her people as merchandise, as if their deaths were a business transaction. Hours passed. The council argued about jurisdiction, about cost, about political ramifications. On the view screen, the situation grew worse. Swarm ships tightened their grip on the planet. Defense stations exploded one by one. Mirashi defenders fought bravely but hopelessly against overwhelming numbers. Elena sat silently through it all. Her face remained calm, but her fingers moved constantly across her datapad. She was checking something, calculating something. Numbers and star charts scrolled across her screen. Finally, after 4 hours of debate, she stood. "Excuse me, Chairman." The chamber fell silent. The human ambassador rarely spoke during debates. Everyone turned to look at her. "I have a question," Elena said calmly. "How far is the Mirashi colony from Sol?" A technical officer quickly checked his navigation charts. "Approximately 11 light-years from your home system, Ambassador." "Why do you ask?" "Just confirming," Elena replied. She looked directly at Chairman Luminos. "I need to inform the Council that human vessels are already en route to the Mirashi colony." Confusion rippled through the chamber. "Ambassador," Luminos said carefully, "there are no human vessels in that sector. We track all military movements. Your nearest patrol ship is 20 light-years away in the opposite direction." "You are tracking the vessels we allow you to track," Elena said. "But our rescue fleet departed from Sol 31 hours ago. They will arrive at the Mirashi colony in approximately 7 hours. The chamber exploded with shocked voices. "Impossible," Chakras squawked. 11 light-years in 31 hours? No species has faster than light travel that efficient. Even our best ships would take 5 days. "And you said the distress call just arrived," a Selenar representative added. "How did your fleet know to leave before the attack even started?" "Humans do not have faster-than-light communication technology." Elena's expression remained neutral. "We have many technologies we have not shared with the Council. We prefer to keep certain capabilities private." "This is outrageous," a Cravathi shouted. "You have been hiding military capabilities from the Council. This violates the terms of your probationary membership." "We have violated nothing," Elena said firmly. "The Council never asked about our full military capabilities. You saw our patrol ships and assumed that was all we had. We did not correct that assumption." Luminos glowed brighter, trying to restore order. "Ambassador Vasquez, please clarify. What kind of fleet is en route?" "Outer Rim Picket Group 7, Elena replied. 7 capital ships, 32 support vessels, and 300 aerospace fighters. They are led by Admiral Marcus Chen aboard the UESS Reaper. The numbers hung in the air. 7 capital ships. That was more firepower than many Council species possessed in their entire military. "Picket group?" Chakras said slowly. "You called that a picket group. Not a fleet. Not an armada. A picket group." "Correct," Elena confirmed. "How many picket groups does humanity possess?" Luminos asked quietly. "That information is classified, Chairman, but I can assure you it is sufficient for our defensive needs." Representative Pila suddenly stood, her eyes wide with desperate hope. She stared at Elena with disbelief. Are you saying your people are really coming? They will save my colony?" Elena turned to face the small Mirashi representative. Her stern expression softened slightly. "Yes, Representative Pila, they are coming. When someone sends a distress call, humans answer. Always." Pila collapsed back into her seat, sobbing with relief. Other Mirashi representatives gathered around her, holding each other, hardly daring to believe. Chakras shook his head in disbelief. "You are sending your fleet to fight the Corvan swarm? With kinetic weapons? Against an enemy that has destroyed entire civilizations?" "Yes," Elena said simply. "Why?" Chakras demanded. "The Mirashi are not your allies. You barely know them. Why would humans risk their lives for strangers?" Elena looked at the Thalen war leader with an expression he could not quite read. "Because they asked for help," she said. "Because children are dying. Because it is the right thing to do. Those reasons are enough." The Council fell silent. They had argued for hours about cost and jurisdiction while people died. The humans had simply launched a rescue fleet. The contrast was stark and uncomfortable. On the view screen, the Mirashi colony continued to burn. The swarm tightened its grip. Shields weakened. Time ran out. But somewhere in the darkness of space, moving faster than should be possible, 7 human warships raced toward the dying world. And on those ships, human soldiers prepared for battle. They did not know the Mirashi. They had never visited this world, but none of that mattered. Someone had called for help. That was all they needed to know. On the surface of the Mirashi colony, the situation had become desperate. The planetary shields flickered and failed. Corvin swarm ships descended like locusts, their organic hulls blocking out the sun. Ground defenses had been overrun hours ago. Civilian shelters were being breached one by one. In the main shelter, thousands of Mirashi huddled together in terror. Parents held their children close. Teachers tried to comfort their students. Artists clutched precious works they had tried to save. They could hear the swarm warriors outside, screeching and tearing through the reinforced doors. It would be minutes now, maybe seconds. Then suddenly everything went dark. The sounds of battle stopped. The screeching fell silent. Even the rumble of swarm ships overhead ceased. For a moment, there was only confusion and darkness. In orbit, something impossible was happening. Every single Corvin swarm ship, thousands of them, simultaneously lost power. Their organic engines went dead. Their weapon systems failed. Their shields collapsed. The ships drifted in space, completely dark and lifeless. The swarm hive mind reached out in confusion, trying to understand what had happened. No weapons had fired. No energy signatures had been detected. Yet somehow their entire invasion fleet had been shut down in an instant. Then the colony sensors detected them. 7 massive void signatures materializing from nowhere, appearing out of the blackness of space like ghosts becoming real. The readings made no sense. These ships were enormous, larger than anything the Council had ever built. And they had appeared without any warning, without any trace. The human dreadnoughts uncloaked around the planet. UESS, Valkyrie, Cerberus, Ragnarok, Normandy, Yamato, Endeavor, and the flagship Reaper. Each ship was over 2 kilometers long, built like a blade designed for war. Their hulls were dark gray, almost black, covered in sensor-absorbing material. They bristled with weapons of types the galaxy had not seen in centuries. On the bridge of the Reaper, Admiral Marcus Chen stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He was a calm man in his 60s with gray hair and steady eyes. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency at their stations. No panic, no shouting, just professional soldiers doing their job. All ships report ready status, Admiral, his communications officer reported. Swarm ships are recovering from the EMP pulse. They will be combat capable in approximately 90 seconds, the tactical officer added. Chen nodded. Open a channel. All frequencies, including Corvin communication bands. Channel open, sir. Admiral Chen spoke calmly, his words translated into perfect Corvin by the ship's computer. Corvin Swarm, this is Admiral Marcus Chen of the United Earth Space Service. You are attacking a civilian population under the protection of the Galactic Council. You have 60 seconds to begin withdrawal from this system. This is your only warning. The swarm hive mind processed this message. Withdrawal? The swarm never withdrew. The swarm never retreated. The swarm was the ultimate predator. These strange ships meant nothing. The hive mind had encountered thousands of species. All of them had fallen before the swarm. As their systems came back online, the swarm ships opened fire. Thousands of bioenergy weapons discharged at once, filling space with deadly radiation and plasma. Hostile fire detected, the tactical officer reported. Point defense systems engaging. The human ships did not move. They simply activated their defensive systems. Rapid-fire cannons tracked incoming projectiles with computer precision, destroying them before they could hit. Energy weapons struck the human shields and dissipated harmlessly. 60 seconds have elapsed, Admiral, the communications officer said. Chen's expression did not change. They made their choice. All ships, weapons free. Rules of engagement, total suppression. Save the civilians. Leave nothing that can threaten them. Yes, sir. What happened next lasted exactly 17 minutes and 34 seconds. But those 17 minutes changed everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. The human ships opened fire, but they did not use energy weapons. They did not use plasma or radiation or electromagnetic pulses. They used kinetic weapons, the ancient technology the Council had mocked. But these were not simple projectiles. The railguns fired tungsten rods at a significant fraction of the speed of light. Each rod was only a few kilograms of metal, but at relativistic speeds, each one carried the energy of a small nuclear weapon. The swarm ships had shields designed to deflect energy weapons. They had armor that could regenerate from plasma burns, but they had nothing that could stop solid matter moving at near light speed. Swarm ships exploded by the dozens. The tungsten rods punched through hulls like they were paper, creating massive exit wounds that vented entire sections to space. The swarm hive mind screamed in confusion. How are these weapons getting through their defenses? The human ships spread out, moving with precision coordination. Aerospace fighters launched from their bays, hundreds of small craft that looked fragile but moved like deadly insects. Unlike most galactic fighters, which were controlled by AI, these craft had human pilots inside. They flew in patterns that seemed reckless, too close together, too aggressive. But every movement was calculated. Every attack run was perfectly timed. Then the missiles launched, thousands of them streaming from the human ships in waves. The swarm tried to shoot them down, but there were too many moving too fast. The missiles struck home and detonated with blinding flashes of light. Nuclear weapons. The Council had banned nuclear weapons in warfare centuries ago. They were considered too brutal, too indiscriminate. But the humans had not signed that treaty. And against the swarm, mercy was suicide. The nuclear explosions tore through swarm formations. Ships that survived the initial blasts were crippled by the electromagnetic pulses. The swarm could adapt to energy weapons over time, learning to adjust their shields, but there was no adapting to the raw physical force of nuclear detonations. On the Reaper's Bridge, status reports came in steady streams. 40% of enemy orbital forces destroyed. Enemy ships attempting to regroup. Negative, Chen said calmly. Do not give them time. All ships Alpha strike pattern. Clear the sky. The 7 dreadnoughts moved into a precise formation. Their main railguns, massive weapons built into the spine of each ship, aligned on the remaining swarm vessels. They fired in perfect synchronization. The effect was devastating. 7 tungsten slugs, each one weighing several tons, struck the center of the swarm formation at the same instant. The combined impact created a shockwave that rippled through space, destroying everything nearby. Swarm ships were torn apart, thrown into each other, crushed by the pure kinetic force. For the first time in recorded history, the Corvin swarm retreated. The surviving ships, barely 10% of their original invasion force, broke formation and fled into hyperspace. The hive mind had calculated the odds. Staying meant total annihilation. Pride meant nothing to a hive mind. Survival was everything. Chen watched them go. Do not pursue. Our mission is to protect the colony, not chase ghosts. The space around the Narration colony fell quiet. Debris from swarm ships drifted in orbit, glowing with residual heat. The human fleet regrouped, checking for damage and casualties. Casualty report, Chen requested. All ships report minimal damage. Fighter Squadron 3 took heavy fire during the engagement. 7 pilots KIA, 23 wounded. Medical teams are stabilizing the injured now. Chen closed his eyes briefly. 7 dead. 7 volunteers who had known the risks and come anyway. He would write letters to their families personally. It was the least he could do. And the colony? He asked. Sensors show swarm ground forces are cut off from their command ship. They are confused and disorganized. Civilian casualties are high but survivable. The colony can be saved if we act now. Then let us not waste time. Launch all marine dropships. Full planetary assault. Clear every swarm warrior from that surface. Make sure not one of them is left to threaten those civilians. Yes, Admiral. From the bellies of the human ships, armored dropships descended toward the colony. Inside each ship, human marines sat in powered armor, checking their weapons one final time. They had trained for years for moments like this. Now it was time to do what they did best. The dropships landed hard in the colony streets. Ramps dropped and the marines stormed out. They moved with methodical efficiency, not rushing, not panicking. Every street was cleared, building by building. Swarm warriors still on the ground tried to fight, but without their hive-mind connection, they were just confused animals. The Marines used flamethrowers to clear the organic swarm nests. They used explosives to collapse tunnels. They worked in coordinated teams, covering each other, leaving nothing to chance. It was brutal work, but necessary work. In the main shelter, the Mirashi heard new sounds outside. Heavy footsteps, human voices calling out in broken Mirashi, telling them they were safe now, telling them to stay calm. The shelter doors opened and human Marines entered, weapons lowered, faces gentle behind their helmets. An elderly Mirashi looked up at the towering armored figure and began to cry with relief. The Marine knelt down, making himself smaller, less frightening. "You are safe now," the Marine said in careful Mirashi. "We are here to help. Can you walk? We need to get everyone to secure locations." The elderly Mirashi nodded, unable to speak. All around the shelter, similar scenes played out. Human soldiers helping frightened civilians, carrying children, supporting the injured. They had come across 11 light years to save strangers, and they had succeeded. The emergency council session began exactly 12 hours after the battle ended. Every representative was present. Nobody wanted to miss this. The chamber buzzed with shocked conversation and wild speculation. The view screen still showed footage from the Mirashi colony, playing the battle over and over. 17 minutes. 7 human ships. 90% of the swarm fleet destroyed. Chairman Luminos called the session to order. His energy form pulsed with unusual brightness. He was as shocked as anyone, though he tried to maintain his diplomatic calm. "This council has witnessed something unprecedented," Luminos began. "The Corvin swarm has never retreated from any battle in recorded history. Until today. We must understand what happened. Ambassador Vasquez, will you please explain?" Elena stood from the human section. Every eye in the chamber fixed on her. She looked exactly the same as always, calm and professional in her dark suit. But the other representatives now saw her differently. They had underestimated this quiet human. They would not make that mistake again. "What would you like to know, Chairman?" Elena asked. Chakras practically exploded from his seat, wings flared wide. "Everything. Where did that fleet come from? How did they arrive so quickly? What were those weapons? That was not a picket group. That was a battle fleet." "Actually, War Leader, it was a picket group," Elena corrected gently. "Outer Rim Picket Group 7, as I stated previously. Stop playing word games, human." A Kravathi representative clicked angrily. 7 capital ships destroyed the largest swarm invasion force we have seen in a decade. In 17 minutes, if that is a picket group, what is your main fleet? Elena paused, as if considering how much to reveal. Finally, she sighed. "Very well. You deserve some answers. The Council has been looking in the wrong place for 50 cycles. You watched our patrol ships. You tracked our civilian transports. You saw our research vessels. And you assumed that was all we had. It was a natural assumption. But it was wrong." She activated her datapad, projecting images onto the main view screen. The Council saw hidden shipyards in the Oort cloud. Massive construction facilities built into asteroids on the dark side of moons. Entire fleets floating in deep space, powered down and invisible to normal sensors. While the Council was busy with politics, humanity was building, Elena explained. "We have been building since the day we joined this Council. Not because we wanted to start wars, but because we learned a long time ago that hoping for peace while preparing for war is the only way to survive." "How many ships?" Luminos asked quietly. "That information remains classified, Chairman. But I can tell you that Picket Group 7 is one of 15 such groups stationed around Earth's outer territories, and those picket groups represent approximately 30% of our total military capability." The chamber fell into stunned silence. The mathematics was simple and terrifying. If 7 ships could destroy a swarm invasion force, and that was just 1/15 of 30% of humanity's military, then Earth possessed enough firepower to threaten most Council species combined. A Selena representative spoke up, her voice thoughtful. "Ambassador, the weapons we observed. Nuclear weapons, kinetic bombardment systems. These are weapons capable of destroying entire planets. You possess the capability to commit genocide on a massive scale." "Yes," Elena admitted. "We do. And yet you responded to a distress call from a species you barely know," the Selena continued. "You risked your ships and your soldiers to save Mirashi civilians. Why? What do you want in return?" Elena looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many representatives as she could. "Nothing," she said simply. "We want nothing in return." "Everyone wants something," a Kravathi insisted. "Power, resources, territory. What is your price for this rescue?" Elena turned to look at Representative Pila, who sat in her seat with tears still on her furry face. 3 weeks ago, Representative Pila looked me in the eye and said, "Please." Elena said softly. She asked for help. That was price enough. 7 human Marines died saving her people. 23 more were wounded. They volunteered for that mission knowing the risks. Do you want to know why they did it? She pulled up another projection. The faces of the 7 dead Marines appeared on the view screen. Young faces, old faces, men and women of different races and backgrounds. All of them human, all of them heroes. Corporal James Mitchell, age 22. He wanted to be a teacher after his service. Sergeant Lisa Chen, age 35. She had 2 children waiting at home. Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez, age 29. He loved painting in his free time. Elena continued through all 7 names, giving each one a moment of recognition. The council listened in uncomfortable silence. These people died for strangers, Elena concluded. They died because it was the right thing to do. Because children needed help. Because someone had to stand between the monsters and the innocent. That is who humans are. We are not perfect. We have many flaws. But when someone cries out for help, we answer. Every time. Without hesitation. Chakras spoke again, his voice quieter now. For 50 cycles I have mocked your species. I called you weak. I laughed at your primitive weapons. I was wrong. I apologize, Ambassador. It was a stunning moment. The proud Thalen war leader never apologized. His entire culture valued strength above all else. For him to admit fault was almost unthinkable. Apology accepted, war leader, Elena said with respect. You could not have known. We made sure you could not know. Why? Luminos asked. Why hide your strength? Foe species advertise their military power to deter enemies. You did the opposite, Elena smiled sadly. She pulled up new images on the view screen. Pictures from Earth's history. Wars, destruction, nuclear explosions, concentration camps, genocide. The council watched in growing horror. This is what we fear, Elena explained. This is what we are capable of. For thousands of years, humans fought each other. We built weapons that could destroy our own world. We committed atrocities that still haunt us today. We know exactly what we can do when we let fear and hatred guide us, so we learn to be careful. We learn to be restrained. She turned to face the full council. We hide our strength because we do not want to be feared. We want to be trusted. We carry these terrible weapons not because we want to use them, but because we know what happens when good people have no power to stop evil. We fought ourselves for millennia. We know what monsters look like. Sometimes when we look in the mirror, we still see them. That is why we hesitate. That is why we are careful. That is why we only act when there is no other choice. The chamber was absolutely silent. The council had never heard anything like this. Most species saw their history as a source of pride. Humans saw theirs as a warning. A message alert chimed. The communications officer spoke up. Chairman, we are receiving a transmission. It is addressed to Earth's government. The source is the Corvin Swarm. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The swarm never communicated. Never. Play it, Luminos ordered. The message was short and simple. It was not written in any council language. It was written in symbols and concepts that took the translator system several seconds to process. When the translation appeared, it was chilling in its simplicity. We acknowledge human species as apex persistence hunters. Neutral zone established. Swarm will not approach human territories or human-protected populations. This agreement is absolute. The swarm had done more than retreat. They had recognized humanity as equals. Predators recognizing other predators. They would not risk another encounter. Remarkable, Luminos breathed. They fear you. Good, Elena said quietly. Fear keeps people honest. But the Mirishi will also remember that when they needed help, humans came. That is the memory we want to leave, not fear. Help. Representative Pila stood, her small body shaking with emotion. Ambassador Vasquez, she said, her voice breaking. My people would like to establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth. We would like to build an embassy on your moon. We would like those 7 brave souls who died for us to be remembered forever in our greatest memorial halls. Is this acceptable? Elena smiled warmly at the small alien. It would be an honor, Representative Pila. Earth welcomes the friendship of the Mirishi people. Luminos glowed brighter. This council must now vote on an important matter. Humanity has been a probationary member for 50 cycles. After what we have witnessed, I believe it is time to reconsider their status. I propose that humanity be granted full council membership, including a seat on the Security Council. All in favor? Hands, wings, tentacles, and energy pulses all rose in agreement. Even Chakras voted yes, his wings spread in a gesture of respect. The vote was not quite unanimous. Some representatives still feared human power. But the majority had seen enough. Humanity was no longer on probation. They were full members of the Galactic Council, with all the rights and responsibilities that entailed. Elena bowed her head slightly in acknowledgement. It was a victory, but she felt the weight of it. More eyes would watch Earth now. More expectations would fall on human shoulders. But that was acceptable. If it meant the galaxy would be a little bit safer, a little bit better, then the burden was worth carrying. 3 months passed after the Battle of Mirashi Colony. The galaxy had changed in subtle but important ways. The change was not dramatic or violent. It was quiet, like the shifting of tectonic plates beneath an ocean, but everyone felt it happening. 7 more species had formally requested military assistance treaties with Earth. The requests ranged from simple defense pacts to requests for human military advisors to help train their own forces. Elena reviewed each request carefully, accepting some and politely declining others. Earth could not defend everyone, but they could help those who truly needed it. The Mirashi had indeed built an embassy on Luna, Earth's moon. It was a beautiful building that blended Mirashi artistic sensibilities with human architecture. Inside, a memorial wall displayed the names and faces of the 7 Marines who died saving their colony. Mirashi pilgrims traveled across the galaxy to visit it, leaving flowers and gifts that the Marines' families later collected and treasured. Perhaps most surprisingly, the Thalen had requested joint military operations. War leader Chakras himself had flown to Earth to discuss the partnership. He and Admiral Chen had met in person, 2 warriors from different worlds finding common ground. They shared stories of battles fought and lessons learned. A mutual respect developed, the kind that only exists between those who understand the weight of command and the cost of victory. But not everyone was happy with the new reality. Fear is a powerful emotion, and humanity's revealed strength frightened many council members. A faction had formed, led by several Kravathi representatives and supported by some of the older, more conservative species. They called themselves the Coalition for Galactic Stability, but everyone knew what they really were. They were the group that wanted to limit human expansion and power. Today, they would make their move. Elena stood in the council chamber once again, facing accusations and proposals designed to constrain Earth's military capabilities. The chamber was packed. This would be a historic session. Representative Kresh, a senior Kravathi, stood to speak. His mandibles clicked rapidly as he addressed the council. We gather today to discuss a matter of utmost importance. The human military represents an unprecedented concentration of power. One species, relatively new to the galactic community, possesses weapons that could threaten us all. We propose the following restrictions, Kresh continued. Human military vessels must register their locations with the Council at all times. Human weapon systems must be inspected by neutral observers. Human fleet expansion must be limited to no more than 5% per cycle. These measures are necessary to ensure galactic stability. Murmurs of agreement came from some sections. Others remained silent, watching to see how the humans would respond. Elena stood slowly. She did not look angry. She looked tired. Representative Kresh, I understand your concerns. I truly do. You look at human weapons and you see danger. You see nuclear warheads and railguns and you imagine what we could do if we turned those weapons against the Council. Your fear is not irrational. It is in fact quite logical. She paused, letting her words sink in. But I want to show you something. Something we have never shown the Council before. Elena activated a new set of projections. Images filled the view screen. The Council saw Earth as it had been throughout history. Ancient civilizations building monuments, medieval kingdoms fighting with swords and armor, industrial nations developing steam power, and then the 20th century, when everything changed. The mushroom clouds rose over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Council watched in silence as human weapons destroyed entire cities in seconds. They saw the Cold War, 2 human nations pointing enough nuclear weapons at each other to destroy their world several times over. They saw the space race, born from missile technology. They saw wars fought with increasing brutality and efficiency. This is what we fear, Elena said softly. This is what keeps us awake at night. Not you, ourselves. We built weapons that could end our own species. We came within minutes of using them. Multiple times. We stood on the edge of self-annihilation and somehow, through luck or wisdom or divine intervention, we stepped back. New images appeared. The founding of the United Nations. The Space Treaty. The gradual unification of Earth under a single government. The decision to reach for the stars together rather than destroy each other. We learned, Elena continued. We learned that power without restraint is suicide. We learned that weapons are tools, not solutions. We learned that the real strength comes not from the ability to destroy but from the wisdom to choose not to. Every human ship carries enough firepower to level cities. Every human soldier is trained to be lethal. But every single one of them is also taught when not to fight, when to hold fire, when to show mercy. She turned to face Kresh directly. You want to restrict our military. You want oversight and limits. But ask yourself this. When the Mirashi called for help, how many of you responded? The Thalan could not spare ships. The Kravathi offered to buy survivors. The Council debated for hours while people died. Only humanity launched a rescue fleet. Not because we had to. Not because it was profitable. But because it was right. We accept that you fear us, Elena said. But we will not accept restrictions that prevent us from helping those in need. If that means we cannot remain in this council, then so be it. Earth will find other ways to serve the galaxy. The threat was subtle but clear. Earth could leave the council. And if they did, dozens of species would probably follow them. The council would fracture. The balance of power would shift dramatically. Luminos spoke up quickly. Ambassador Vasquez, I do not believe it will come to that. Representative Kresh, I understand your concerns, but the Council must judge species by their actions, not their potential for harm. Humanity saved the Mirashi colony. They have entered defense treaties with 7 species, and not one of those treaties includes territorial demands or economic exploitation. They have shown remarkable restraint despite their power. Chakra stood, his wings spreading wide. I speak for the Thalan people. We oppose any restrictions on human military capability. The humans have proven themselves worthy allies and honorable warriors. To restrict them would be to punish them for their virtue. This is wrong. Representative Pila stood as well, her small voice surprisingly strong. The Mirashi also oppose restrictions. Humanity saved 3,000 of my people when others did nothing. We trust them completely. One by one, other representatives stood in support. Not all of them, but enough. The tide was turning against Kresh's coalition. We will put it to a vote, Luminos declared. All in favor of implementing restrictions on human military operations? Less than a third of the council voted in favor. The proposal failed. The matter is settled, Luminos announced. Humanity will continue as a full council member with no additional restrictions beyond those that apply to all member species. Kresh sat down, his mandibles clicking in frustration. He had lost this battle, but Elena knew it would not be the last such challenge. Fear does not disappear overnight. Some species would always see humanity as a threat. That was the price of power. After the session ended, Elena made her way to the observation deck. She needed a moment alone to process everything. The view from Unity Station was spectacular. Stars stretched in every direction, billions of them, each one potentially hosting life. Quite a day, a familiar voice said behind her. Elena turned to find Admiral Chen standing there. He was out of uniform, wearing simple civilian clothes. He looked more like a grandfather than a military commander. Admiral, I did not expect to see you here, Elena said. I was delivering a report to the Thalan about our joint training exercises. Thought I would stop by to see how you were managing, Chen replied. He joined her at the window, looking out at the stars. They fear us now. Yes, Elena agreed. Some of them do. Is that a bad thing? Chen asked. Elena considered the question carefully. Fear can be useful. It keeps people honest. It makes them think twice before making threats or starting wars. But fear alone is not enough. We need them to trust us as well. To know that yes, we are powerful, but we will only use that power to protect, not to conquer. And the next time someone sends an SOS? Chen asked. What will we do? Elena smiled slightly. We will be there. That is what humans do. Someone calls for help and we answer. Every time. No matter the cost. That is who we are. That is who we choose to be. The fleet will be ready, Chen promised. Always. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, in the vast darkness of space, human ships patrolled. Hidden shipyards continued their work. Marines trained for battles they hoped would never come. The galaxy did not know where all of humanity's military assets were located. They probably never would. But the predators of the galaxy knew something important now. They knew that if they attacked the innocent, if they threatened the weak, if they brought terror and death to peaceful worlds, humanity would find out. And humanity would come. The UESS Reaper and its sister ships would slip through the darkness between stars. They would arrive without warning. They would strike without mercy against those who deserved none, and they would protect those who could not protect themselves. The galaxy had witnessed what happened when an SOS summoned humanity's deadliest fleet. The Corvin swarm had learned that lesson at terrible cost. Others would learn it too if they made the mistake of threatening the innocent. But the galaxy had also witnessed something else. Something perhaps more important. They had seen that humans, despite their terrible weapons and frightening power, chose compassion over conquest. They chose to save rather than subjugate. They chose to answer calls for help rather than ignore them. That was humanity's true strength. Not the railguns or the nuclear weapons or the fleets hidden in the dark. Their strength was their choice. Every single day they chose to be better than their history. They chose to be heroes rather than monsters. And as long as they kept making that choice, the galaxy would be a little bit safer, a little bit better, a little bit more hopeful. Come on, Elena said finally. We have reports to file and meetings to attend. The work never ends. No, Chen agreed. But it is good work. Important work. They walked back into the station together, leaving the observation deck behind. The stars continued to shine, indifferent to the dramas and struggles of the species that lived among them. But those species were not indifferent. They were learning, growing, changing. And somewhere out there on a peaceful colony world, Mirashi children played in streets that had nearly become their graves. They played safely, protected by the memory of 7 humans who had died for them. Protected by the knowledge that if darkness came again, someone would answer their call. Humanity would answer. They always did. That was their promise. That was their purpose. That was who they were, and the galaxy was better for it.